Mac Attack, take us inside yesterday's event and how hurt were your feelings if you did not get the private invite last week to Nico's roundtable?
A little hurt, a little stung, not going to lie. It's kind of like seeing your best friend gets invited to the party that you don't get the invite. Like you see it on Instagram or social media, and you're like, wait a minute, why am I not at the party? And that's where you know where you really rank, and I'm clearly not in the cool kids club. But yesterday, they were like, okay, I guess we got to invite all the losers and nerds. It was, Shan, I'm not going to lie, it was a little tense. I know he's getting killed for it. He should have done it 2 months ago. I was critical of him the day they introduced Anthony Davis, and I'm like, wait a minute, where's the guy who pulled the trigger on this trade? And he did own that he screwed it up. The PR staff was very nice about it. They made a mistake. And what it hit me was, Shan, Bobby, is there anything that he could have said, any combination of words other than I screwed up and I quit, that you think would have satiated fans right now at the moment?
Absolutely not. Nope. No way.
Then I agree with you. And when I asked him that question, there was 4 questions I wanted to ask, and he was very nice. I mean, look, that was a really tense press conference.
Great job by the media. I thought the questions from everyone were fantastic.
So do I. Thank you very much. I thought everybody asked good questions, and I thought he was very decent about it. It didn't get tense. It was just, any exchange wasn't tense, but the whole mood of it was tense.
Yes.
And I thought he handled it as best he could. Yeah. But
I got killed for giving him props for it being better than the last interactions. People can't, nowadays, especially on social media, two things cannot be true at the same time. But I thought he tried to adjust yesterday for the better.
So did I. I totally agree with you. And I think the problem is the answers aren't good. No one likes no, what I mean is no answer is good. And to me, the flaw, and I'm sure you guys have talked about it a lot, this is basically a 3-year window. And year 1 and year 2 of it are basically gone because the player that is the second most important piece to this suffered a major injury. And now year 3 of it, these guys are going to be 35 and 34 years old. I can't think of championship teams built around 35 and 34-year-old guys. Maybe it happens, and then if they go out and get KD, it's going to be some AARP, AAU convention. And I'm not seeing it. And I'll give him, there's one part of this I'll say, and I said it from day one. You give me a team with a healthy Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving with those other guys, that's a team that can win a title. They didn't get the team, but for what, a half?
Yeah.
And we're not going to really see it again.
Mac
in
Engel,
exchange for Luka Doncic.
Mac Engel, 4-star Telegram here on 105 through the Fan. I want to go back to his answer to your question over not realizing the Luka love. Should we be outraged by it? It reads, as many things in life, it reads a lot worse than the actual sound. Or did you think while he was answering it, oh my gosh, you're going to get destroyed for this? Or was he just trying to say, I know Luka was loved, I just didn't know that there would be near riots?
I want to give him credit for that one in terms of what you just said. I knew he was loved. I didn't know they were going to be picketing.
Yeah.
I think it's like a lot of decisions that you make. You kind of brace for one scenario and you're like, okay, I know this is going to be bad, right? You know the breakup's going to be bad. Oh, I didn't know she was going to burn my house down. Yeah. Or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know. Yeah, right. I didn't know she was going to kill the bunny rabbit. So I just think in this case, yeah, you know it's going to be bad. You know it's popular. But until you actually pull the trigger and you see the outrage, then I don't think anybody could have really prepared for it because, Shan, guys, I can't think of a precedence for something like this where you, other than Babe Ruth, which is kind of cool, I just can't think of one. So
I got to take it back to my Baltimore days of the Colts leaving, the Browns, like a franchise leaving in the middle of the night. That's the only thing I can think of with the rage.
And, I asked Randy Galloway about it. I called him a couple of weeks ago to write about it. And I said, can you think of any example like this? And he said the closest would be when Jimmy Johnson left the Cowboys, when Jerry fired him. The difference was that team was still rolling. Yeah. And as upset as they were at Jerry Jones, justifiably, they kept winning. Well, they made this trade and they made the play-in and then didn't make the playoffs. I just can't think of anything really where there's like a comp where Nico and the management can say, well, okay, we should prepare because this kind of happened there. Well, there is no comp. You just went and made history. Good job.
Matt, when we look at the history of Dallas Fort Worth sports, I feel like when I grew up here, I felt like basketball was always third for the city. Like it's Cowboys, Rangers, Mavs generally. Why is it though that Luka has such a connection as the most beloved star? And then further back to that, if you were to put somebody else up there, it's another basketball player. It's Dirk. Like Juan Gonzalez getting traded didn't get this reaction. Des Bryant getting cut didn't get this reaction. Why is this one so intense? Why is a city that has basketball third so in love with their two stars?
That's a great question. I've thought about that, why we identify with the Slovenian. I think some of it has to do with he walked in the door at 18 and we knew him right away. He was following the legend's legend, right? I mean, Dirk can do no wrong. So he followed him, and I'll be damned, it looked like it was actually going to work. And I think he was just identified with this guy, Bobby, who, when he played, you knew just by the way he carried himself and the bandages that he was leaving everything out on the floor. And not only that, he carried the entire fandom in the city on his back with a middle finger at his opponent while he was running out there on, two bad knees or this or that and dropping 50, grabbing 15 and dealing 11 assists. I mean, just put up stratospheric numbers, and I think it just seemed genuine. And I think people just gravitated toward it. And I hate to say this, but I do think there is an element to it. I don't know how big of an element, but he's a white dude. And I mean, it does. It's like the Josh Hamilton thing. People loved Josh Hamilton. They loved him. I'm not sure, had Josh been Hispanic or African American, that the fandom would have been the same. Because he was an amazing talent. He was a good guy. I mean, he wasn't going to cure cancer, but he was a good guy. He was a good player. But I think with Doncic, there was just an identification that there was. I remember Jimmy Johnson said this one time about the Dallas Cowboys and why it was important. It was something in their life, in our lives, that we identified with as a positive. And being a Luka fan, win or lose, was a positive. And now you've given him away to your hated rival in exchange for a really great 32-year-old center, Max Christie, and a future first-round pick. I'm sorry, that trade, that part of it is negligent.
Yeah.
And I just can't get my head around that one.
Is there a part of this, do you think, that's at play of, because there was that 1 year overlap with Dirk and Luka, and we saw 18-year-old Euro, that almost this city views them as one? Like Luka and Dirk, that was a one carry, and so it's almost like you've just destroyed the image of who has represented that team because people tie them together so unconsciously.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. There was just some seamless transition, and I'll be damned, but he did it. I'll never forget this. The rookie season, Luka's rookie season had ended. And remember, that was Dirk's last year, and they did the big, great game send-off in San Antonio. And the next day, they've got him at the practice facility, and Dirk, holds court with the media, and he walks off. And then Luka walks in right behind him to a wall of microphones. And I'm like, holy cow, that's a lot for this guy. And he did it. I mean, how hard that would have been? And he actually did it. And I mean, as great as Dirk was, Luka's actually better. And unfortunately, and I was thinking about this when they played the first time in Los Angeles, there's only like 10 or 12 Dirks. One guy who plays his entire career, Hall of Fame career, in one city. Michael Jordan didn't do it.
Yeah.
Most guys don't. And I think we had unrealistic expectations set by Dirk, but I think he would have been here in his 30s had Mark Cuban still on the team, but it's gone. And, someone who's observed this now for a long time and is sort of detached emotionally from it, I got to tell you, on this one, it sucks.
Matt Engel, Forward Star Telegram, was at the Nico presser yesterday, joining us here during the Expressway. What do you think of Patrick Dumont?
I don't know. I think this is what he reminds me of, and I've covered it for a long time. He's a very wealthy guy who's been in business, done very well, married extremely well, good lesson kids. And he doesn't know what he doesn't know yet. And in terms of owning a sports team, he's never done it. And it doesn't function like a hotel. It doesn't function like a restaurant. The widgets are different. It's just a really weird business. So I think, when he turned the keys over to Nico Harrison, Nico did what a lot of these guys do, which was he was really empowered. The guy who was his fund governor was gone, and Mark Cuban, and then he could clean house and he could put in his guys. And that's why we saw Casey Smith, some of these other guys get jettisoned because Nico was in charge and he's like, I can put my guys in place. Okay, that's pretty standard operating procedure with a management turnover. And you had Patrick Dumont, who sits there and says, I don't know anything about basketball. You do. Run the basketball team. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So now what's going to happen, I think, Shan, here in about 2 years is, the second year, 2.5 years of Dumont's ownership, he's going to have met a lot of people. He's going to get some knowledge. He's going to be into it. He's going to be interested. And then he's going to look at his GM after next season and say, you know what? Great job. I want my own guys in place. Unless they somehow go on a run and maybe they get to the second round next season, but I don't think they're going to. And that's why I think ultimately the fire Nico chant will actually be realized, but it's not going to be until this time next year.
Did you think Nico was going to resign at any point? When does the only question I think wasn't asked yesterday is, do you ever plan on sitting back in your seat at your home games?
It's a good question. There was like 3 or 4 other ones that I thought of that I thought I wish I'd asked that. Because one of them was, if you believed in this trade so much and you're leaning into it, I don't want to run from anything. Why aren't you sitting in your seat? And I understand that would have been really,
yeah.
Dorothy Gentry asked a question of, how are you?
Yes.
That's a legitimate question.
Yes.
You're now, they're just crucifying you. And the killer about this, Shan, is that the trade was almost 3 months ago, and it hasn't faded at all. In fact, it's almost getting worse.
Yeah.
And I think it did flash for a second. I thought because he had his notes, and I thought, I wonder if he's resigning. But obviously he didn't. He had some bullet points, people he wanted to thank and make sure he covered, X, Y, and Z before he took questions. I think the one wild card in on this is that if you look at NBA teams, look what happened in Memphis, look what happened in Denver. You just never know. Sometimes crazy things happen, and maybe maybe the ownership situation changes. That's what that's what I would predict. But I think for him, if he hadn't learned a lot these last 3 months, then he's a lot dumber than I'm going to give him credit for. But moving forward, this is clearly his team for now. And he's going to have to be a little bit more front and center on it because the Dallas Mavericks are his. They're not Jason Kidd's. They're not Patrick Dumont's yet. And I do think he completely misread almost all of it to catastrophic levels.
You feel bad for Kidd?
No, not really. I think my sympathy for these guys in these situations is changed significantly because, I remember when I asked him before the homecoming game, I was the one who asked him, fans are upset. And he said, this is a business. It's a business. He's been in it for more than 20 years as a player and as a head coach, and he gets paid a ton of money to do it. That it's just the reality of it. I feel bad for him in the sense that, he was handed a completely different roster flip on February 1st, and to not be clued in on that, that's a little cold. But nope, he said it. It's a business, and hey, some people are comparing it to Babe Ruth, so that's kind of cool.
All right, how did that happen?
I threw out a softball. No one was it was before the game, Sean. No one was asking him about it. I'm like, oh, well, I got to ask him about it. And I just asked him, what do you tell fans who feel like there's no hope without Luka Doncic? And he said, this is a business. And then as I know you are familiar with this, sometimes these guys, in their effort to be nice, they just keep talking. And sometimes they talk and they construct a sentence that you would say, oh my God, you did not just say that. Or the other theory, so he says, some people are comparing it to trading Babe Ruth.
Which is
the only
awesome.
thing I thought was
kind of cool.
Oh, it's fantastic, right? The only thing I thought, Sean, was maybe he's saying it to throw his general manager under the bus. Maybe. He would deny that publicly. But I thought, if he's doing that as a passive-aggressive shot, mission accomplished.
So the Babe Ruth response was running through your mind of more, oh my gosh, what are you doing, versus Nico and the Luka love thing yesterday?
Well, when I asked him about, no, when I asked Jason Kidd that question, I never thought he would say anything like that. No one could.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is just totally out of left field. And so and that's another question. I wish I had asked Nico that about his GM, about his head coach making that kind of comparison. No, I'd be lying to you if I said when I heard some of those responses, I think the problem was I don't think they thought it through. And to me, it's kind of an analogy of the trade. I don't think they really thought it through.